when the sun's high in the sky. There's a time for every people to affirm their destiny. La 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 la. Even so, all of us together can create a better land. Leave the past, a new tomorrow waits for all who understand. La 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 la. Leave the past, a new tomorrow waits for all who understand.
darkness with tears of devotion. cry your name. I am yours, ever yours. Will you come? Long I've called you, my Lord. Long I've called you. Many years I have longed for your sight. Bathe the darkness with tears of devotion. Offered candles in prayer to your light. How much longer, friend, must I cry your name? I am yours, ever yours. Will you come?
I'll better never say die. When I was a young disciple, I'd been with Master only a few months, and I fell into a great mood. And I thought, well, I tried to reason my way out of it. I said, this doesn't make sense. Reason follows feeling. I couldn't get out of it that way. And finally I said, well, boys, what do we want to do about it? Do we want to keep this way? And all my mental citizens said, no, let's get out of it. So I said, all right, let's sit down to meditate. So I meditated, put my mind very strongly here. 5 minutes was all it took. You know, our thoughts are not our own. We are on different levels of consciousness, but our brains are not creating, they are receiving. This is a reality that very few people understand, but Yogananda said in Autobiography of a Yogi that thoughts are universally and not individually rooted. Our subject this evening on how to cooperate with grace is to understand that everything that we do is a part of God's consciousness. You know, when I was young, I was very desperately seeking truth. I didn't know where to find it. I thought first to find it through science. And I investigated it. I was interested to be an astronomer. But I realized it doesn't really matter how many galaxies there are. What matters is something that has touches my life. And I finally left science, and I thought to go into political upliftment. And then, too, I found that until people change themselves, no political system is going to do anything. And so how do we get people to change themselves? And I was thinking, this was a very deep and intense search for me. I was 13, 14, 15, and I was thinking that maybe we'll find him through the arts. At 15, I thought of starting communities. And all this time, I was perhaps a little too serious, but I really was serious. I wanted to know what life is all about. And I remember after a time, I thought, well, the beauties of art, after all, many prominent Nazis were art lovers. That means that art doesn't really make you much better. You've got to bring to yourself, to what you do in life, what you are. How do you change yourself? And I had been trying to seek all this without God. And I remember I was thinking one time, well, who has really had a significant impact on human history? Nobody really, except Jesus Christ, Buddha, great masters. I didn't know anything about India at the time. And I remember I went out into the darkness in Charleston, South Carolina, and I said, if there's a God, what must he be? And I was thinking since desperately, I just had to know. And I realized, well, what is making me ask this question? The fact that I'm conscious. Then God must be consciousness. And if that's true, then I must open myself to his consciousness. And the goal of my life is to be more and more open to his consciousness. I didn't know anything about the lives of saints. I didn't know anybody had ever sought God before. I thought maybe I'm going crazy. Who has ever had these ideas in history? I didn't know anything. And I remember I tried to get away from it to go to the simplicity of the country. And I remember seeing the dewdrop on a blade of pine fir leaf and thinking that's beautiful, but I can't feel it. I've got to somehow uplift myself. I've got to. I was desperate. And okay.
Okay.
Thank you. And I remember, they say when you lift one hand to God, he drops two to pick you up. You don't have to do it all yourself. When the disciple is ready, the Guru will come. God really does it all. I remember the intensity with which I decided that I had to be a hermit. Even if I went crazy in the effort, I had to. And at that time, my father's company, Esso, sent him to Egypt to look for oil. And the day that I put my mother on the ship to go join him, I went up down New York, and I found Autobiography of a Yogi in a bookstore. And that completely changed my life. I had never heard of Hinduism, I'd never heard of yoga, I'd never heard of Guru, I didn't know anything. But I read that book and it absolutely changed my life. I said, now, I've got to become a disciple of this great man. And I took a bus, non-stop, 4 days and 4 nights across the country. And the first words I addressed to Paramahansa Yogananda were, I want to be your disciple. And he accepted me that day. And I've been one now for 64 years. And that makes me 86, does it? Try to forget these things. Anyway, I was so thrilled living with him, listening to his teachings, but more than anything else, there are many monis who are gurus, because what the guru really gives you is not so much teaching, but a transferal of consciousness. My guru told me a very interesting story. He said that there was a certain man who was being bothered by a demon. And he had read in the Shastras that you need to say a certain mantra over some powder, throw the powder onto the demon, and the demon will leave you. So he did that, and when he threw it on the demon only laughed. He said, before you could even get into your powder, I myself got into the powder. What this story means is that you can't get rid of the ego by your own willpower. Jesus Christ said, as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God. We have to receive God. We have to receive his blessings, his consciousness into ourselves. The Guru's purpose is to help you to know him. The path is 25% your effort, 25% the Guru's effort on your behalf, and 50% the grace of God. But that 25% that is the Guru's effort, and the disciple's effort, is putting yourself in tune with the Guru. He has no ego. Anything that you do, you can't get away from ego, because the ego is the center of everything you do. You have to get rid of ego to know God. And the road of life is too narrow for both you and God to walk together. It's either you and your ego or God. You've got to get rid of it. And when you have done so, then you suddenly find an infinite consciousness. I remember when I was with my guru, he looked at me one time intensely, and he said, "If you knew my consciousness." And I remember a poem of his, Samadhi, when I, the cosmic sea, watched the little ego floating in me. This is what it's all about. We've got to get rid of this ego. And so grace, we must understand first of all, and this is something that was difficult until this particular time, and I'll explain that to you. We were in Kali Yuga for a long time. India believes we are still in Kali Yuga, but we are not. We are now in Dwapara, and you see the signs all around you. You see people making telephone calls, watching television, going by, going to the moon, everything that we know of in modern civilization, in fact, is really a sign of electricity, energy, Dwapara Yuga. Well, I'm not going to make that a big argument, but I will say this, that in this new age, it is possible to understand something that people could not understand even a few years ago. This world, this matter that seems so solid, is not solid at all. It's only a vibration of energy. Energy is a vibration of consciousness, of thoughts. Thoughts are a vibration of consciousness. And everything really is God. God dreamed this whole show into existence. This is a very important point to understand. In other words, you don't have to go bowing down before some image. By the way, India does not practice idol worship. It practices ideal worship. Idol worship is worshiping money or sex or fame or all those things of the world. But ideal worship means that each idol, so-called, is a representation of a divine ideal that you're seeking. That is not bad. You need an ideal. You need something God is too infinite to imagine what he is. So you think of him as Kali or Ganesha or something. But you have to understand that if you have a vision of God in that form, you have to look into his eyes and see there's infinity there. The God that you are looking for is not a separate little deity. He is the infinite, and he is you. You are a part of that consciousness. People 200 years ago could not have understood that. Now we can understand it rationally. It makes sense. This body doesn't exist. This mind does not exist. Even my thoughts don't. They're not mine. And so everything we do is, in a sense, the grace of God. Now, in order to attract his grace on different levels, it depends on where your mind is. When I put my mind here, to fix it firmly here, to get rid of that mood, what I was doing was lifting my level of consciousness, and then I could receive a higher kind of thoughts. When my thoughts go down, nowadays I never have a mood or a sad thought or anything. I'm always in bliss now. But years ago I used to have moods sometimes. Then my mind went down. If I lifted my mind, then the moods changed. Whatever level your consciousness is on, and the different chakras in the spine are all indications of what your level of consciousness is on. When they're on the lower level, they're on an earthy level. And you think earthy thoughts, and it comes naturally for you to tell dirty stories and all that. Now, when your consciousness is high, it's unthinkable. It all depends not on who you are, but on what level you are. We're all children of God equally. But some people live in the lower chakras, and they do not have the thought of God. But you know, when you go through the streets of Mumbai and look at crowds of people, if you could see that one thing unites them all, everybody is seeking only one thing. Everybody is seeking happiness. And a mafioso might think that, happiness is to be found in revenge and so on. A businessman might think, happiness could be found in money. But as you get more and more refined, as your level of consciousness goes up, then you know that the only happiness you can ever find is in God. So if you want to live by God's grace, don't plead with Him to give you His grace. He's perfectly willing to give you His grace. You've got to open yourself to Him. You've got to do the necessary effort, make the necessary effort to open yourself to Him. So that everything that you do, instead of pleading with God to come to you and give you His kripa, say rather that I want to live with you. And you will find more and more that wherever you look, you will begin to feel blissful, because you see that everybody really wants that bliss, Satchidananda, ever existing, ever conscious, ever new bliss. My Guru added that phrase, ever new, and that ever new explains to my satisfaction why God would create the universe in the first place. Because the nature of ever new bliss is to want to keep expressing itself. But when you reach that level of bliss, then you are bliss. There's nothing else existing in the world. And when you see people in the streets, Yogananda used to say, when you see a sad face, shoot him with the buckshot of your smiles. Try that. I found many times when I look at strangers with a smile and they suddenly smile. It's so beautiful. Help other people to feel happy. Think in terms of other people's happiness, not just your own. You know, we're coming to a very serious time of economic depression now in the world. It'll begin in America, because America has been too greedy, but the world is too greedy. It's always thinking, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? Like that movie Charlotte's Web, where this little rat is always saying, what's in it for me, Charlotte? And well, think this, that Jesus said, it is more blessed to give than to receive. And it's more blessed because it's more blissful. When you give to other people, you're getting rid of this ego a little bit, breaking down the walls of your ego, identifying yourself with other people. When you give to other people, you're thinking of their happiness. To get rid of the ego is the first step toward finding happiness. The more you are locked in these walls of solid ego, the less happy you will be. When you've broken down those walls, that bliss will be able to come through you. And it will come to you many times. Even I find people in the streets just smiling at me. Why? I don't know. But I do know. It's because I feel bliss. And I want to share that bliss. I want to share it with everybody in the world. It's the only thing worth seeking. Everybody is made of Satchidananda. You are God. But the thing is, do you know it? My Guru one time said, it's only the thought that you are not free that keeps you from being free. And Boone, a disciple of his, said, well, if I said I was free, I wouldn't be free, would I? Master said, oh yes, you would be, but you answered your own question. You said, I wouldn't be. You've got to get rid of that thought that I am separate from him. You've got to get rid of that thought that you've committed sins and so on. Every time you make a mistake, you're all trying to reach God. I remember when I at the age of 21, I used to be a smoker. And I'd smoke maybe a pack of cigarettes a day. I don't remember exactly. But I wanted to give it up. And I wanted to give it up because I decided to become a hermit. And I thought, who ever heard of a hermit who smokes? So anyway, it was, as Mark Twain said, I found it the easiest habit in the world to give up. I've done it 1,000 times, he said. And so I would give it up until that noon coffee, at lunch coffee. And I think that cigarette used to taste so good, so I had, well, just one. But you know, one important thing, I never said I have failed. When you fail, don't ever say I have failed. No matter how big a sin you commit, Never say, I'm a sinner. Remember this, a saint is a sinner who never gave up. So I would tell myself, I have not yet succeeded. And that became an affirmation. And after a year, I remember saying to one of my roommates that I've given up smoking. He said, oh, I've heard that one before. I meant it. And I woke up the next morning, I had not the slightest desire for a cigarette. And I had a half-empty packet. I gave them out to friends of mine till I finished the packet, but I've never had the slightest thought in my heart for a cigarette. So if you keep on, you may feel that you failed 1,000 times and you can never give it up. But if you keep on trying, say, I have not yet succeeded, you will find that God's grace is always there. Don't feel that He has ever abandoned you. Don't feel that God ever will damn you to hell. Don't feel that God will ever let you down. He is always there. He's on your side. He wants you to find your own self. He pushed this universe out of Himself to enjoy Himself, they say in the Shastras, through many. That seems a bit steep to me, but anyway, it's sort of like a story when you have a poor boy living in the slums and working hard and slowly reaching up and becoming a secretary in the office and finally becoming the boss of the office and finally marrying this boss's secretary and getting a beautiful home. You put the book down, you say, that was a great read. But if the same boy had been born into a wealthy home with pull, he managed to get into the very good position, marry the boss's daughter, you put that book down on page 3. So all the trouble and struggles we go through in life, and it's been many millions of lives. Don't think I read in a book recently about this woman had 58 previous lives. 58 million maybe. In the Bhagavad Gita it says that when I start a new day of Brahma, I throw all these souls out again. And in the Rubayata Vomakayam, which is a deep scripture, although very few people know it, he had to pretend that he was writing a love poem, but it's a deep scripture, and my guru explained it. And he said this particular passage, he said, the many of those who enter into Maya at the beginning of a day of Brahma are still wandering at the end. It takes 5 to 12 million lives, 8 to 12, I think, to reach the human level. And then a human being has free will, and he can go any way he wants. And so if this girl doesn't do it, that girl will do it. Well, there are a billion girls. And this boy doesn't do it, that boy, a billion boys. And money and position and work and all that. There's so many ways of erring that in this world you can make so many mistakes it can keep you going forever. And I remember somebody said to my guru, I don't think I have very good karma, sir. He said, remember this, it takes very, very, very good karma even to want to know God. Yes, if you have that desire, and you must have that desire, you wouldn't be here this evening. Then take it seriously, because it takes very good karma even to be a human being. It takes long work even to reach this level. Once you've reached this good karma, don't blow it. Don't blow it. Realize that you have just a few lives, a few years left to go in this body. Will you remember in your next? Well, it depends. You can fall from this human stage. Oh yes, you can be an animal again. You can be an ant again. You can even fall so far as a germ. And if you fall that far, think of the pain inside that you must suffer as you have to come up from that low level. It's very good karma to be a human being. It's very, very good karma to want to know God. Don't blow it. So now, What do you do to find God? Well, you have to find a guru. That's the most important thing, but God will bring you to him. So pray deeply to God for that. Pray deeply to God because it's his grace that does everything. Does Satan exist? Yes, Satan does exist. Satan is that part of God which in his consciousness pushes everything out into creation. And it tries to keep it just keeps trying to push you downward and outward. And so don't listen to the voice of Satan. He is always trying to catch you. These are realities. You know, somebody wrote that she had been in hell, and she saw many young people there. And it's very painful to think that young people, because of the music they live, the drugs they listen to, the drugs they take and so on, many of those young people will go to hell. Hell is not a permanent state, but it's not a pleasant state. Try in this life, while you have the awareness, try to think of how to find God. Think of him more. You will find that every time you turn toward him, he brings you more towards him. It's as if we were right on a fence. If you turn towards Satan, toward the left side, then that side begins to pull you. And the satanic pull is a very real pull. If you go, I remember one time I went in the nightclub district of San Francisco. I wasn't wanting to go to a nightclub, I had to go to a certain goal. But I could feel these waves of magnetism coming out of each nightclub door. Come in, come in. It was not pleasant. And I remember I was just chanting as I went, Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram Om, Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram Om. And I was untouched. But keep your heart untouched. Stay with good company. Remember, company is more important than willpower. Environment is more powerful than willpower. It's very important to have good company. If you have friends and they are of a downward pulling kind, don't think of them as friends, they are your enemies. Choose those people who are looking for truth. Choose sattvic people, not Raja Tamas people. And think in terms of love. Because when you love other people, gradually God's love flowing through you. I don't mean what human beings call love. That isn't love, that's passion. Passion is greedy, it's selfish. When you think of giving to other people, think of some one person you want to do something for today. Every day, look for one person and think, what can I do for him to uplift him? Think in terms of what you can do to bring a little life into people's. You know, you look at so many faces in the world, they're just dead faces. Jesus Christ said, let the dead bury their dead. He didn't mean dead people will jump out of the graves to bury other people. He meant that most people are dead. There's no life in them. Don't be like that. Think in terms of your relationship with God. The closer, the more open you are to him, the more you will feel his grace pouring into you and uplifting you. The more you turn to the left side, the more Satan will draw you. So don't let your thoughts go that way. But the more you turn toward God, it will no longer be your efforts, it will be him pulling you. And the more you offer yourself to God, the more you will find that grace lifting you, so that you realize you don't really do anything. You just open yourself enough to him to the point where he can fill you. Remember, your thoughts are not your own. But when you live from this, the upper chakras, offer yourself to that infinite, then you'll find such a bliss in your life that really it's almost hard to control. Everybody has that capacity. Everybody can find God if they would only turn in the right direction. Try not to watch television. That's a useless thing. Try not to listen to heavy beat music. That emphasizes the ego. Try to listen to uplifting music, chants, kirtans, and my songs are written just to help lift people's consciousness. You know this one song you heard last? It was Cloisters. There was a monastery in Sorrento in Italy, and I've written over 400 pieces of music, but I wanted to write this one for the monastery. And I thought, well, it's no longer a monastery, so I can't write it like just a straight chant of a Gregorian chant mode that the monks sing in Christian monasteries. So I had to bring it a little out of that. So I told God what I wanted, and I said, give me that melody. It came to me. You know, if you work, you don't have to just wait, God, give me your grace. No, you got to work with it. So in this case, I said, well, I will work with you, and give me the melody. So I thought, long I've called you, my Lord, long I've called you. And that's the Gregorian style. I had to repeat that. Many years I have longed for your grace. Then I had to break out of that into a more modern mode because it was a place that's a tourist attraction now. Bathe the darkness with tears. That tears is a different mode. With tears of devotion, offered candles in prayer to your light. And then the impulse was to go break out of that into the emotional mode. That wouldn't do. How much longer, Lord? That would be emotion. That wouldn't be devotion. So I had to rein it in. How much longer, Lord, must I cry your name? I am yours, ever yours. And I couldn't end it on the tonic as the song usually ends. Will you come? That would have killed it. So I said, now God, how do I do? I am yours, ever yours. Will you come? And so in that it sort of went off into infinity. And all my songs have come that way. Listen to music that has been divinely inspired, because it will change your consciousness. It's not just a matter of, well, I have tastes, I go according. Your tastes depend upon where your center is. Your tastes depend upon where your understanding is. You have to change your consciousness. So, how do you do that? Meditation. Kriya Yoga is a very important thing. Kriya Yoga helps you to understand that when you see a beautiful sunset, it isn't the sunset that's beautiful. It's your ability to respond to the sunset that gives it that beauty. And so your reaction to the life around you, some people can look at life and say how wonderful it is. And other people look at the same scenes and say how bitter it is, how gloomy it is, how sad it is. You are what you make yourself. The more you offer your life up to God, the more He will inspire you and give you the strength to seek Him. So I want to close this talk by singing a song. Hari ma tera hamesha, Hari ma tera hamesha, dur mein jaun taron mein rahun, dur mein jaun taron mein rahun, lekin main tera hamesha, Hari main tera hamesha. मैं जब मरूं अखियाँ को देखो, मैं जब मरूं अखियाँ को देखो, वो तुझे कहे मैं तेरा हमेशा, हरि मैं तेरा हमेशा. I'm going to ask you to keep standing because you'll have to sing a song with us. We'll sing. Come on, choir.
Yeah, call upon the Anand singers once again to come on stage.
Okay. Oh yeah, let me tell you a few things while I'm thinking it. And besides, I have Giacomo to say a few words. First, I want to say that I have written a book called Demystifying Patanjali.
Mike.
Patanjali, if you read most translations, all translations that I know, you don't know where they're coming from. What do they mean when they say conditioned think, thoughts? What do they mean? And so this book demystifies him. I sat with my guru and I learned these teachings from him. And I was able in 3 weeks to write what I consider a very important contribution to the literature of yoga. I've also written lessons in self-realization, which you can take in your home every week for a year. And I would like to invite you to the land up at our community near Pune. It'll be next week. We have a special retreat. Do please come if you can. And finally, Giacomo, I would like you to come and talk about the movie. This is a movie I wrote about the life of Yogananda.
Good evening. It's not easy to add words after a beautiful word of Swami. I just want to tell you that we are going to make a movie inspired by the autobiography of a yogi, of Paramahansa Yogananda, and the biography that Swami wrote about Yogananda in the United States. And it's a blessing for me to work on this project. I feel that it's the project of my life. I made already around 15 movies, 6 about spiritual person, but this is my guru. And I'm very happy to give back something to your country, to India, that gave so much to all the world. And it's beautiful to speak about maybe the highest present that India makes to the world, that is deep spirituality. So thank you. Thank you, Swami.
I should mention that I have also written a movie about my life with Yogananda and how I came to him and so on. And we hope to begin this very soon. So if any of you are interested in it, let us know. We might be able to use your help. Okay, let's have some music.
Please stand for this last song.